This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus. Sometimes I write about the rest of the state. Today, we're going to continue our exploration of money and money management at the Columbus Housing Authority, and now with their connection to the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization. So, just to rehash, the Columbus Housing Authority is a government entity through which money passes from HUD in the to support the housing of indigent and marginalized communities here in Columbus, Mississippi. Um, they receive major funding from HUD in the form of lots of money. We're talking $1.2 million a year or more. Okay. So right now, what I want to focus on is some money that I am struggling to figure out where it went. So let's look at some information that I have. So first, I want to share with you what I got in a FOIA request. I asked for their banking for the Columbus Housing Authority. And so what I found in opening this one, this is from August of 2024, and I'll show you. See, it says it right up here. The statement is August 31st of 2024, and we're specifically looking at this account that ends in 1802 and their checks and withdrawals. So what we see is that somebody withdrew $75,000. So I went down and went, that's an interesting amount. It's an even number. Only one check was written, which is 1461 on August 19th for $75,000. So I scroll on down and there it is. It was written as a counter check. And as you can see this, it is signed by the current director, Robert Graythree. Yes, that's his signature. It was made out to cash for $75,000. Now, find it interesting it was made to cash. Now, was a check cut from that so that that money could be moved into another account? Why was it done this way and not with an electronic transfer? Why was it not done as a counter check of some sort? Not really sure why it was done this way. But anyways, there's $75,000. Now, what I would like to show you next is that in the board minutes, there's no mention of the $75,000 being removed or moved. So let's look. So I'm going to go. That was the 19th of August that was done. So now we're going to look at the August 28th board minutes. Now I've looked at the July board minutes. The month before, there's no mention of the $75,000. I'm looking at the amount in the July bank account for the Columbus Housing Development Organization, this CHDO that's mentioned right here, which is where they generally move money to, and we can see where they're moving money. Sometimes they move it into their checking account here, but that would be a Trustmark account, so there's no reason a cash check would be made to move money from one account at Trustmark to another account at Trustmark. They use web transfer all the time, and it always says internal web transfer. So that's not what this is. Clearly, that check says cash. You can see it right there. It says cash. So where? Let's zoom in a little. Ooh, let's go. Look, it says cash for $75,000. So where did that money go? Well, let's just assume that the director, Robert Graythree, is going to say that it went into this show account. Well, as of July 30th, on their account, it says that there was $6,100 in their account. So that would have been right before the money was moved. So if it was at 61,000, then when we go to September, and let's go find the September minutes, The September minutes show no money there. Hang on, that must have been all right. The September minutes show that they only have $5,000 in their oh nope, they have 54,000 in their banking account. So if they went, how did they go from 6,100 to 54,000 and they're still have spent down X amount of dollars? The previous month in September, they had $30,000 in that account. So where did all the money go? So they went from 30,000 down to 6,000. That's about 28,000 that was spent. And then they went from 6,000 to 54,000. So 6,000 plus 75,000 would be 81,000. And now they're down to 54,000. So where did the money go? You tell me. Were their expenses that significant? Why is the fact not mentioned in this August? Let's go back to the August books. In August, there is no mention of the 75,000 being moved. Absolutely none. When I went to let's go to the August 18th, the September 18th, there's no mention of the 74,000 being moved. None whatsoever. Doesn't matter. It is not mentioned anywhere. And it doesn't matter if I'm even doing bad math. There's no mention to their board that he's moving money from one account to the other. None. There's definitely nothing showing that they moved money from this Trustmark account of $162,705 from their $2 million worth of money to their nonprofit. Where's this mentioned? Where is this indicated? Where is this notated? Nowhere. So when I make these statements that their banking and their money moving is not transparent, it's clearly not transparent, because I'll be glad to share these board minutes with anyone, but I have looked backwards and I have looked forwards, and there's no mention of $75,000 being moved by Mr. Grathery to his board. His board has no idea what's going on. His board had no idea that at the bottom of the 990s, it states that they had seen those 990s. And when I spoke with the director, the board president of the Board of Commissioners about the 990s that I reported on yesterday, she said she had never seen those 990s and she never approved them. I would like to know where they were approved. I would like to know why their names are on them. And let's go back and look. I'll just show you one. I'll show you what's at the bottom. Remember I said they were in the negative on what they spend compared to what they bring in? Well, let's go to the bottom. This is even more concerning to me. It says right here, let's see if I can make this where you can see it. It says Form 990, Part 6, Section B, Line 11B. Each board member receives, reviews, and approves the return. Where are their signatures? Where have they seen these, and where is it reported that they have seen these? Because yet again, I can't find any mention of it in their board minutes. So if they exist in their board minutes, I can't find them. I'd also like to see when their 2024 990s have been filed and where they are. I'm not sure when this one was filed. Let's look and see if there's a date. Because there's just so much going on that the transparency is non-existent. And it's very, very concerning that there is no transparency in this organization. That is because of two things. We don't have a date that I can find of when this 990 was filed. Oh yeah, I can. It was filed in October 30th of 2023. So we should be able to see the I'm guessing they haven't filed the 2024 one yet. I've seen the 2023 and the 2021. So the bookkeeping is abysmally embarrassing. I'm just going to be honest. It's very embarrassing. So where's their money going? How's it being spent? Money is being moved from the Columbus Housing Authority, monies from HUD, and being transferred over to this CHDO, this Columbus Community Housing Development Organization nonprofit, out of public view. So it appears to me that there's a little bit of, I mean, it almost looks like money laundering. I can't say that's what it is because I can't see anything, but I can't see what's going on at CHDO with their books. I doubt very seriously they would let me look at their ledgers. They don't have to since it's a nonprofit. But I bet the Secretary of State and the state auditor would love to see their books. I think there is some very unethical, at the very least, banking practices going on. One, not informing the board that money's being moved. Two, the fact that money's being moved that's not been budgeted to move. And because clearly if they're spending more than they are budgeted, then there's a problem. So it's not like they start out with $400,000 in the bank and that's their budget and that's what they live with. It's just arbitrary how money's moved over there. It's also, we have no idea what they're spending their money on. And it could be for absolute program services and care for the buildings, and it could be renovation. I don't know. But the fact that they're just moving the money over, and that within the ledger, I have found monies that have been moved, I've found checks that have been written to cover expenses at the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization, the nonprofit, by checks that have been written from the Columbus Housing Authority. There's so much mixing and muddling about of monies that it seems very questionable at best. And I think it deserves to be looked at. So I made a little spreadsheet. Let me show you it. I believe you can see this. These are the bank accounts for CHDO. So I just started with January of 2024. They had $6,000. Then they had 22,000, but there's no mention in the minutes of where that 18,000 extra came from. Then they went from 22,000 to $159,278,000. Where did that come from? Then they went from there to 150,000. So, to 106,000, which means they spent 52,000. Then they were down at 85,000, so they burned 21,000 in that month. So I'm not sure how they spent 52,000 in 1 month. Then they spent 21,000. Then they spent 20,000. Then 35,000, and then they were down to that 6,100 that I mentioned in August 28th. Prior to that, August 28th was when the money was deposited allegedly. And so somehow they spent about $50,000 between a little bit more than $50,000 between August 28th and September 18th. That's, I think, about 30 days. And then they spent another $40,000 by October, and then they got infused with another $100,000. So I'm already at over $100,000, over $400,000 being deposited into their bank, I believe. So then they spend down and they spend 24,000. And then by January of 2025, between December 18th and January 28th, they spent $81,000. What did they spend it on? 81,000. And then suddenly they got another deposit of $20,000 or so. And then in March, they got $100,000 deposit. And then between March and April 30th of 2025, they spent $64,981.12. Wow. What are they spending it on each month? What costs that much to maintain? Since uh, we have no idea. I think it's incumbent upon that board to start asking some questions, start looking at some ledger sheets, and start making some really serious inquiries and figuring out where their money's going. Because ding dang, y'all, that's a lot of money they're spending. Anyways, hey, that's all I got for today. Um, if you can figure out these monies, more power to you. Uh, I encourage you to do your own Freedom of Information Act public records requests to find out what's going on in your community. Um, I'm just digging into these dollars, and like I said before, every time I look into something that Robert Grathry or Rusty Walker from their HUD capital funds manager that they've hired, every time I look, I just have more questions. More questions. And these are very expensive questions. So maybe that 75,000 went over to CHDO. I don't know, because when we looked at that bank account, let's go back and look at it again. There's no, it doesn't tell you where they transferred it to. So we're shooting blind without the rest of the information. So somebody needs to open both books and put them side by side and have a look, because that's the only way you can reconcile this kind of mess. They need a real accountant. They need someone who's local. They need an accountant on that board who's serving on that board, and who can advise them and can we need somebody who demands, we need a board that demands transparency. We have at least 3 members on that board who are not transparent, are not fighting for transparency. They're fighting for secrecy and continued closed efforts. They don't want anybody looking at the books. They don't want anybody looking at asking difficult questions. They certainly don't want any more Public Records Act requests. They've okayed super high costs, although finally I got them to come down and on the most recent request involving the credit cards. So that'll be the next item that we will be picking up. Hopefully the bid packages that I've requested will be ready after 2 on Friday, as they had said. And then the following Friday, I should be able to pick up the credit card statements. So I want to thank you for coming on my podcast, The Tombigbee Tales. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, the video will be on YouTube if you want to follow along with visual with visual representations where I point out these check images and the reconciliation sheets and the board minutes. You are welcome to follow along on Tombigbee Tales on YouTube. Until next time, I'm Shannon Evans.